My name is Michael Elrod-Erickson. I'm the assistant coach for Team USA in the IPL at the last two World Championships. I also helped write and teach the USPA's Level 2 Coach Certification course back in 2024. And I own my own coaching company, Premier Power and Performance. I only have like a 352 bench, which is decent. But I've coached a couple guys to like low to mid fours, untested female. When she started working with me, she was at 225, and in 6 months she got up to 260. So at that kind of like level, to make that sort of progress in that sort of time, I think is a good demonstration of the fact that bench press has like a really low skill minimum. Pretty much everyone can like lay down, grab the bar, and like touch their chest and push it back up. But it's got a really high like skill maximum, and all that space in between is a lot of room to get better at the skill and express your strength a lot better. Because she was already strong. It's just she wasn't doing a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, and making those changes makes a huge difference. So we're going to start kind of like with the shoulders, and then work down, and then come back to the shoulders and talk about unracks and like back up the arm. Just because I think having some sort of like linear flow rather than just kind of jumping all around makes it a lot easier to understand. So starting with the shoulders, the biggest thing we're after is like we want them pinched together and down. Sorry to interrupt you. We got a couple more. Pinch them together and down because we need to create stability. The shoulder is like a really mobile joint. If I just like drop down into the splits right now, all of you guys would be like, "Whoa, that's crazy." But if I just like that's the side splits right there. That's the front splits. No one's freaking out over that. Your shoulder's like naturally really mobile. So unless we're like creating that stability ourselves, then it's not going to be in that strong of a position. So we need to move the shoulder blades. You might hear them referred to as the scapula. I don't generally use like a ton of anatomical terms because I want it to be like simple and easy for you guys to follow. But you're going to run into that one enough out in the world that you should be aware of it. So there's retraction, which is pinching back. There's protraction, which is coming forwards. There's elevation, which is like shrugging up, and depression, which is pulling down. What we're after in the bench press is pinching back and down, again, to create that stability, but it also reduces the range of motion. Because if my arms are like here out straight and I pinch my shoulders back, there went like 2 inches. My arms just got shorter. And if I pull my shoulders down, suddenly now I can touch down here rather than up here. And that part of my chest is, again, another good couple inches lower. So like try and go from here versus there automatically like shortens your range of motion. And a shorter range of motion should let you lift more weight because you don't have to move it as far and it's more efficient. So that's the first thing. Increases stability, reduces range of motion. And then the next question is like, how much are you trying to pinch your shoulders together and down? The answer is basically as much as you can of both. Like if you pinch your shoulders back as much as you can, at some point it results in your shoulders kind of like shrugging up, because a lot of the fibers that like pinch your shoulders together are in the traps and like also result in a little elevation. So we don't want to do one to an extreme so much that it results in like a loss of the other, but we want like as much of both as we can. So together and down as much as you can. And a good way to think about it is like the bottom of a lat pull down, because pretty much everyone has done one. So like you're pulling the bar all the way down to your chest. You want to be in like this sort of position as you set up for your bench press to get your shoulders set. And you'll notice that naturally kind of pairs with like arching through the upper back. Those two things are really like linked together. And that's the next thing we're going to cover is the upper back position. So real quick, I'd like you all to try this. Just put your hands on your ribs and then exhale like all of your air, like and then take a big inhalation. You'll notice like your ribs moved, your hands moved. You guys can stop now, by the way. A lot of people think of their ribs as just like a fixed structure. It's like, oh, it's a bone. It doesn't really like move or do much. That's not really the case. There's a lot of like cartilage and openings in the ribs so that they can like move around. We're going to need to like take advantage of that in a good bench press. So we're talking about both like the rib cage and the spinal position. Our goal is to arch so that we can reduce the range of motion. We can have the bar travel less distance and use more weight. But it also helps support the shoulder position that we just talked about. It's a lot harder to have your shoulders like pinched together and down and be like here than it is there. So those two like naturally link. And then when it comes to the arch, the more of it that we can get from the upper back, the better. Like I wouldn't turn down arching anywhere, but like super mobile females are like the best example. Some of them are like super arched, but their highest point is almost like their belly button. It's like out higher up than anything else. That doesn't actually help because the bar is touching like here. If you could get like this to be the highest point instead, where you're more like there, that's even more useful. So the biggest point that we're after is like the very bottom of the rib cage. It's like where we really want to arch. So if you were just like standing up, a good way to think about it is like see if you can get a shelf made on your pecs where you could like stick a shot glass there. So you're trying to get like there, because then whenever you're laid down on the bench, like this point is going to be really high, which is where you're actually like touching with the bar. And if you are really intentional with your like spinal position on squat and deadlift, you might be like, what the heck, why are we like not in a neutral spine position? The big reason the bench breaks all the rules that we have for like those other two lifts is there's not actually any like load going through our back. So we don't have to like position ourselves or breathe and brace the same way that we would for that lift. Because on the bench, the weight is like in your hands, going down your arm, and then straight into the bench. At no point is it like really going through your spine, whereas like a bar on your back or a bar on your hands is like the weight's going down your body and you have to support that. So when it comes to breathing, we also have a slightly different intent. The goal is to like breathe in and expand the rib cage as much as you can, again, to reduce the range of motion, as opposed to like trying to like breathe down here and then kind of like almost like bear down like you would in squat and deadlift. We almost want the opposite. We're trying to like expand up here as much as you can and then just hold it. So it's like, because again, that breathing can get you another ½ inch to an inch. And if you think about it this way, if you put like a 1 inch board on your chest and did a bench press, you could probably hit more than your max comp bench. So why would we pass up all these different opportunities to like cut inches off your range of motion? And then if there's like nothing else that you take away from today, like one single tip to increase your bench press immediately, it would just be hold your breath. The reality is like once you're in this sort of position, your shoulders are pinched down and together, your chest is high, you breathe in. As soon as you breathe out, you're probably flattening out. So the sternum drops. And then as a result, the shoulders also lose part of their position. They're naturally going to like pop up and out some. And then you're losing some of that stability. So over the course of 5 reps, if you like breathe in and set up, you're like, you unrack, you breathe out, you breathe back in, you do your first rep, you breathe out, you breathe back in, you do another rep. By rep number 5, you've probably gone from like here and super tight to like there and just kind of doing it. So holding your breath forever is not realistic, but I can generally get through a set of like 3 without having to breathe, or at least on your like competition single, if you're a power lifter, you should be able to breathe before you unrack, hold it until after you've gotten the start command, and then only like breathe once you're done with the rep, as opposed to like most people you'll see, they breathe before they start, they breathe again before they get the command, and then they start coming down. Like the reality is you're probably not keeping tension when you're exhaling, and you're probably not getting back to 100% whenever you do breathe. But on a rep set where you have to breathe, like say it's a set of 7, you're not doing that on one breath probably. I would say the biggest thing is make sure your breath is fairly shallow. You don't have to be like, and then just lose all tension in all position. Shoot for like, and then afterwards you can always make sure that you're reset. So lift the chest up, pinch the shoulders together and down, and then you can go back into your rep. When it comes to like breathing and bracing, the other thing is like belts. People are used to wearing a belt for like squat and deadlift because it really helps. On bench press, I would say it's not really necessary because we're not after the same stuff like we just talked about. So there's only like niche situations where you might need it. I'll go through like some of the reasons that like people try it. I think number 1, a lot of people want to like breathe and brace like they would for the other lifts. So they're like wearing it thinking that they're going to like breathe in down here and create tension. I don't think that necessarily helps a lot. Again, I think you're better off like breathing up here. Some people will wear a belt like super tight, intentionally trying to like restrict how much they're able to breathe. So they like have to breathe up here. Like, again, I don't think that's really necessary. Just get better at like breathing where you want to and expanding how you want to. But I myself have worn a belt on bench at one point in the past. I don't anymore because I was having an issue where whenever I went to leg drive, my like low back would kind of untuck and then my butt would lift up as a result. And wearing the belt like down really low helped in terms of like more awareness and just more tension, so that didn't happen as often. So if you have like a specific reason for why like that, then it might be useful. But I think most people would just assume that like they need to because they do on the other two lifts, or they've seen some famous lifter wearing it and they're like, oh, I should try that. And if you are going to wear a belt, there's one important thing for it. I would try and keep the belt really low as opposed to like where you would wear it for the other lifts, because we don't want it getting in the way. So like on most lifts, it would be kind of centered around the belly button, right? Like roughly there. If I try and arch, like that really gets in the way. So I would put it down like pretty much as low as you can, where it's like almost right above the butt cheeks. Because then you can arch pretty much as normal or ever, and it's not like in the way. So if you are going to wear a belt, that would be the one tip there. So the next thing is when it comes to like the touch on the chest, there's two big styles of bench press. There's like a soft touch, and then there's like sinking. So I'll show you one real quick. So like a soft touch would be just trying to like barely touch your t-shirt, not let it sink in at all, and then press back up. Whereas like a sinking bench generally kind of drops a little bit, your chest drops, you get kind of here, and then they try and like spring out of it a little more. You'll generally see that with like bigger people, so they've got more of a sink than I'd really be able to do. But I would say like the soft touch is theoretically better for anyone. I don't think there's ever a case where like a sinking bench would be recommended.
Didn't they ban sinking in IPF?
I don't think so. There are some like niche rules about it. We'll get to one in like just a second. So I'd say like the big benefits of like having a softer touch is you've got less range of motion, right? If the further you sink, the more the bar has to travel. And not only that, it's adding more range of motion in the like hardest, most vulnerable part of the lift, like the very bottom. Imagine if someone came up to you on squat and was like, oh, dude, you got to go like 2 inches deeper. You'd be like, shit, I don't want to do that. Like bench is the same thing. The other thing is you're probably not staying tight if you're sinking. You're probably getting kind of loose. And like no one would want to like squat where they're like, and then just kind of, and then, oh yeah, I'm going to like sling myself back out of it. But people seem to have that idea on bench press. They're like, oh yeah, I'm like getting loose and then I'm going to explode out of it. And it's like, probably not. Because like at what point in your bench press do you want to be weak? None of it, really. You want to be in a strong position the whole time. And like a strong position is a tight one, not a loose one. And then the other two things are like more technical from like a powerlifting standpoint, kind of like you were probably getting at. So the press command in a meet is not, what's up? So the press command's not given after any like specific duration of time. It's just when the bar is motionless. So if you take longer to stop the bar moving because it's sinking in or it's just kind of wobbly on your chest, it's going to be a longer time before you get the press command. So like most people that complain, oh man, that ref was like really making me wait for it. Well, it's probably your fault because you were probably just like moving the bar around on your chest. So it's not a specific like duration. It's not like a 1 count. It's not a 2 count. It's like as soon as the bar stops moving. So you'll get faster press commands. And then the other thing is if you sink, like say the bar comes down, you sink a little bit, you get the press command, you sink a little more, and then you press up. You're going to get red lights for that because it was downward motion. Like as soon as you get the press command, it can only come back up. So you either need to like do all of your sink, stop, and then come back up, or just don't sink at all. which would be the direction that I would kind of push everyone in. And most people's response is like, well, what about Julius Maddox? He benches like more than anyone else. Well, he's also like 400 pounds. When you're this thick, yeah, you can kind of get away with it a little bit more than, you know, you or I could, because his like shoulder position is like here as opposed to like down here. So adding just a smidge is not costing him nearly as much. And at this point, he's like so deep in his career, trying to change that would be hopeless. But if you were like making someone in a lab, or you caught him 10 years earlier in his career, I would be like, hey bro, you should probably try and soft touch. And then if he had built that up over time, then maybe his bench press would be slightly more consistent, because he does tend to run into some issues of like getting slightly out of position or stuff like that. So I would say like everyone should shoot for a soft touch, and the best cue there is just like think about your chest is made of glass, or you're trying to like touch your t-shirt but not like your chest. You want to just like barely be here, hold it motionless, and then press back up. And then the very last thing in terms of like the torso positioning before we move on to other stuff is like your head kind of ties into it. Most powerlifting federations, there's not any rule about like having to keep your head down. Most of them will allow you to like lift it up if you want. The only problem is your spine's kind of like one of those bendy snake toys. When you like move part of it, the rest of it kind of goes with it. So if you're here and you've got this huge arch and you're in a good position, and then suddenly you're watching the bar as you lower it down, you're probably having the chest drop and flattening out. And not only that, the shoulders like kind of rolling in, and then suddenly you're in this sort of position rather than like staying there. So I encourage everyone to keep their head down and like have slight pressure backwards into the bench, because it gives you like an added point of contact, a little more stability, and a little more tension through the upper back. So I'm not like slamming my head back as hard as I can or anything. It's just like a little bit of pressure, like, I don't know, maybe like 10 pounds, like pressing back just a smidge into the bench. All right, so with leg drive, the first big thing is you need to know the rules of the federation that you plan to compete in. Some of them require like a full foot contact, like feet flat on the floor. That would be like USAPL and the IPF. Maybe Powerlifting America, I'm not sure about that one.
Powerlifting America is IPF.
Fair enough. Okay. And then pretty much all the other federations will allow, like, you can be on your toes if you want. I don't think one is necessarily better than the other. It's just you have to conform to the rules of your federation. If you're in one that requires like flat feet and you have like a kind of tucked leg position and you struggle with that, you could always consider wearing a heeled shoe, right? Like if you got squat shoes that have an inch heel, then you can essentially have your heel still an inch off the ground and like still get into the same position and meet the rules. So the big thing with leg drive is we're after like horizontal force. Like if this is the bench, we're trying to shove that direction, not this way, because we're trying to like push ourselves up the bench onto our traps and into a bigger arch and like support that shoulder position here, as opposed to like pushing down, which is just going to like lift our hips up in the air, and then you're going to get red lights for your butt coming up. So the best way to think about it is we're after like knee extension. Everyone's done a leg extension machine, right? We're just trying to like create that sort of movement. We're trying to like kick horizontally while just having your feet on the ground. Or you can think about trying to like bust your toes through the front seam of your shoe. That's normally how I cue people. So like you're trying to like do that through your shoe. Because if you do that well, it should kind of drive you up the bench. So you're here and you're set, and then you push with your legs, and you're managing to get there. And it creates tension to kind of support that position as well. So I'd say there's like one general requirement when it comes to like a good position for leg drive. You probably need your knees beneath your hips, like there, because if it's kind of level or like higher, then as soon as you go to push, your butt's probably just going to pop right up. So there's like two real options when it comes to that. You can have your feet like way forwards out in front so that your knees drop low, or you can have them like way tucked back. If you're short, you might be able to get away with like something in the middle, but like people with longer legs, whenever you go in that like middle gray zone between the like tucked and feet forwards, then your knees are probably just too high and you're going to end up with like butt lifting. So like the two positions you can either go like feet way back here, which tends to work a little better if you're like kind of on your toes, because it's really hard to get like flat feet further back here. Or you can go like feet way out in front, like out there. I would say, like if you're new to thinking about leg drive, like you've never considered what your legs are doing in your bench press, like feet forward might be a better place to start, because it's more natural to think about trying to push that way when your legs are out here, as opposed to having your legs like tucked way back under you and thinking about trying to shove that direction. The other thing is, I would say like the theoretical best leg drive would be pretty much invisible. It's just like constant tension the entire time. Whereas most people think about like trying to like, they lower the bar down and all of a sudden they're like, ugh. The reality is like your leg drive's not moving the bar. You're not going to transfer force from your legs shoving in this direction to like meaningfully move the bar. The main point of leg drive is just to support the position of your trunk. Because we want to stay in that big arch. And also, if your chest drops while you're pressing, like you go to push and you end up here, then the pecs run from your sternum onto your arm. If your sternum is dropping, then they're losing leverage. They're not in as good a position to like contract anymore, right? Like imagine Logan and I both had like a rope and we were doing like tug of war. If he's pulling and I'm pulling, then we can get it tight. If I'm pulling and he's like walking towards me, then the rope's just kind of like slack the whole time. So if your chest is dropping as you go to push, then there's just like some slack and the muscle fibers aren't able to like really leverage and like pull hard. So we need to like have a lot of tension in that leg drive and the chest reached up towards the sky to support that position so that this can happen with good leverage rather than like just kind of being like, in order to produce as much force as possible. So I would say like if someone had never bench pressed before and they were learning about leg drive, I'd say just create that sort of like tension, like you're trying to do the leg extension, hold that pretty much as hard as you can the entire time, and like that's it. Don't think anything else about it. The reality is like that's not how I bench press. There's plenty of people that have that sort of like tendency to like want to push extra as they go to push. And if someone's done that like stylistically for years, I'm not gonna like just say, oh, unlearn that and do it differently. I would just try and make sure that they get to the point where there's at least like 80 or 90% as hard as they can the entire time. And then if they add that last like 10 to 20% as they go to push, I'm not worried about that. It's just, I don't want like 0 to 100. If they're like totally relaxed on the way down and then they go, ugh, their butt's probably lifting, they're probably not in the best position as they're touching, they're not as tight as they could be. So I want to get them like closer to that 100% the whole time. But I'm okay with like 80 to 90 and then adding that last little bit. Like that's how I personally still bench. But again, it isn't necessarily how I would teach someone that was like brand new to it. Like I don't know how many of you guys like think about like trying to pack your chin as you squat, but I'd say like that's the best comparison. When you're squatting and you're in that bottom position, the bar is trying to like shove you forwards a little bit. We want some tension to be kind of like here. So the simplest option is just pull your chin back before you start the squat and like keep that tension the entire time. That checks the box of what we need and it's super simple. But like theoretically, we don't necessarily need that at the top when we're still pretty upright and there's not that much tendency for the bar to like try and tip you forwards. So it would be fine if you were just kind of like moderate tension, more. So if someone squatted that way, I wouldn't necessarily like change it. I'd say leg drive is the same thing. It's like we most need it in that bottom position as we go to push. So if someone naturally like has a bit and then just adds a little bit more, I'm not necessarily like trying to change that as long as they've got enough prior to that. So people sliding is like one of the biggest issues with leg drive, whether it's the feet or the back. When it comes to your feet, you've got a few different options. Before I get to that, like the technical rule about like your feet sliding, at least in the USPA, I'd have to check about the others, is they're allowed to slide as long as it's within like half of a foot's distance. So if your foot was like here and over the course of your rep, it went like that, it would be fine. If it was like so drastic that it went like all the way out here, you could get a red light for that. And if it like slipped and like totally came off the ground, you would definitely get a red light for that. But you're allowed a little wiggle room in terms of like forwards or to the side, as long as it's still like against the ground. But it does kind of suck if it's sliding, because that means you're probably losing some force, and nobody likes to be like mid rep and suddenly their foot's like whoop. So something you can do about it is like this. We've got carpet here. Carpet can be a little more grippy and frictiony than just like the rubber flooring. So you could always get like a little carpet square that you bring with you if you don't mind looking goofy. Or the simple option, you can wipe your shoes before you're set. Like at my previous gym, that's what I did. I would just get a damp paper towel and like wipe it off first, so it wasn't like dusty and quite as slippery. That's the best option when it comes to the shoes. When it comes to your upper back, kind of sliding on the bench, that shouldn't be happening on meet day, because the benches should be pretty good. Like generally they have a nice like grippy kind of surface. And then there also tend to be like a texture or like a firmness where your upper back kind of like sinks in a little bit and you're not like as sliding. So normally that's just a problem with the like crappy commercial gym benches. The best fix for that is you can just get like a bench mat. So the company Ab Mat sells one, Odyssey sells one, or you can get like a shelf liner for like $5 at Walmart and just put that on the bench. But we do ideally want your upper back and your feet to be like pretty firmly in place, because if we have tension, or like this is fixed in position and this is able to create tension that way, then we can really like wedge your body into that big arch. Whereas if either one is kind of slipping, then you're just kind of like losing that at both sides. So it is worth investing, like trying to fix either of those two issues. And the last point I had is, if you like really struggle with keeping your butt down, for most people it's just a simple matter of like focusing on like shoving horizontally rather than straight down. But some people will still have an issue with it, like myself. I've got plenty of red lights at meets for that. The secret fix for that is you can just try a slightly different like hip and foot position. Generally, most people are not going to like be very good at extending their hip, like pushing that way, if they're like internally rotated. So they're kind of like here and they're like adducted, they're squeezed in. So like what I generally have to do is I set my feet like fairly wide, and then I try and turn them in, and then I try and like squeeze in against the bench. So here I can still push as hard as I want with my quads, and yet my butt doesn't like lift up because I'm not really like pushing down much. So I can kind of get here, and then my butt stays down even as I go to push hard. Whereas if I was just kind of like here, I almost always end up where as soon as I do the rep, my butt starts lifting. So like if someone had me as their handler on meet day and they were having their butt lift up on the first couple benches, and I was like, oh shit, how are we going to fix this for the third? I would be like, take your feet out a little wider, turn them in, squeeze in against the bench, and then see if that helps. And generally it kind of fixes things. Is there anyone that has never used leg drive or feels like they really struggle with it that would like to do a drill real quick? You want to do it?
Sure.
Cool. So just set up like you normally would, and then I'll stand like here at the top, put my hands on your shoulders, and then just think about trying to like push your toes through the front of your shoes, and like you'll be kind of sliding up towards me. Yep. So yeah, now push with your legs a lot more. Yeah, there you go. So like that's the feeling we're after when it comes to leg drive.
You said for somebody new to start out
Yep.
in the front,
Sure.
should they work towards putting it further back if they can?
If you have issues with being further out in front, then you can work your way back. But if out in front is working for you, then I think you can just stay there. Like when I was further out in front, the only issues I was having was I was still having my butt lift up, and my feet were slipping a lot, even with tricks like wiping my shoes and using carpet and that kind of stuff. Just because the further out in front they are, the less friction there's going to be. Because the big things are like, what are the two surfaces, and then like how much downward pressure is there, and then like how much surface area. So the biggest thing that we can change is just how much downward pressure. And when your feet are like way out in front of you, it's like almost all horizontal and like almost zero down. So it's just really likely to like whoop. So if you have issues with that, then you could try further back. But otherwise, I think just stick with out in front.
And the main reason the main thing you're just trying to do is keep the tension in
Yep.
your legs.
Yep.
You shouldn't have any like movement.
Yep. Yeah, I'd be fine with like completely invisible leg drive where you're just like holding tension the whole time. Any other questions? What's up?
When I do leg drive, like if it's a little too wide or whatever,
yeah,
my whole leg just cramps up. And if
sure.
it doesn't after the first trip, it does it for the second.
Okay.
And third, it just gets worse.
Gotcha. I think like a warm up could probably take care of that. The reality is like the position's pretty demanding. You're in a lot of like hip extension where the leg's like back behind you. So you can do a couch stretch, which is like here to get ready for that.
Yeah.
Or you can do Bulgarian split squats, but like with a different intent. So like toes down, and you're focused on like, this is not how I normally do them for the record, but like focus on staying like super upright and like push through the back leg rather than the front one. So you're getting like here, because that's basically the same position that we're trying for leg drive. It's like the hips extended, we're pushing with the quad, and like that honestly helps people like get the feeling for it too. So as soon as you go to bench press, you're just trying to like do that while laying on your back. So like that might help. And then if you're super wide, I would try like a frog pose. Do you know that one or not?
Not at all.
Okay.
You mean like this?
So like knees out wide here, and then like rock back. So you're just getting ready for that like position of having the legs out pretty wide. And you can also add an element of like internal rotation there. So like lift one side at a time, rotate out, come back, lift the other, and go back. So like that's one that I had to use when I had the like super wide position just to get ready for benching. But yeah, if you do stuff like that in the warm up, the cramping would probably get better. And like same goes for the back. Like a ton of people get back cramps in bench press as it gets really heavy or like on meet day. The biggest thing is like warm up your upper back and warm up your hips so that like you're not limited in mobility, getting here or getting here, and all of a sudden your low back has to pick up the slack, and then it starts like cramping up on you. All right, so that was kind of like everything down. Now we're coming back to the shoulder, and we'll go like kind of up the arm. The other big thing when it comes to like shoulders, upper body is you can use the environment to help you get in position. Like most people will just kind of grab onto the bar, which is fine. The bar can be helpful too, but you're also welcome to use the rack. So if you were trying to set your shoulders and you struggle with that, you're welcome to grab here, like kind of palms up, like by your sides. Wiggle your shoulders down into position. You can even like set your leg drive kind of up against that. And then I would transfer like one hand over to the bar, set it, switch the other hand over, and then you should be kind of here. So you're not allowed to tuck your feet and like leg drive like this or anything. You can't have your feet against the upright, but you are allowed to like use your hands against the rack as you're getting set up. And then the other thing is the unrack itself. When I interned at Kabuki Strength, they were big on like if you can't self unrack, then you don't know how to bench press. And I was like, well, what? That's so rude. Like that's not true. I'm a good bencher. But they were totally right. Like now I'm starting to realize because the action of like doing a good self unrack is exactly the same way that you need to like create tension for your bench press. So the big thing is like getting the shoulders pinched together and down, and then the unrack needs to be like pulling the bar out of the rack. So you're here as opposed to like pushing the bar out of the rack, which is what a lot of people do. Because as soon as you go to like push the bar, your shoulders pop forwards, your chest flattens out, and you just lost position before you even started. Especially because the bar is like back here over your face. As soon as you go to push, your shoulders have to get like underneath it in order to like support that position. So you want to think like a straight arm pullover. If you've never done that, you should probably give it a try. But like take a cable, hook it up to something, and then you're doing this. So like that's the motion we want. And then to get the vertical distance to like clear the J cups, all you have to do is just extend the elbow. So like no press from the shoulder, just here, extend the elbow, pull it the rest of the way out, and you're ready to start. And you haven't lost like any position during that. If anything, it helps you get like more position because you can kind of use that pull to like lift the chest.
So does that mean your setup needs to be like higher up on the bench?
Yep. Yeah, so that's the next thing we're getting to. A lot of people also set up like way too low down the bench. We want the unrack to be like as short as you need in order to like clear the J cups and almost like no further. Because any further distance is just like wasted movement. But also like the further back the bar is over your face, the more likely it is that you have to kind of like shrug up to get underneath the bar. So with a rack like this, you can probably set the bar like kind of like collarbones or like chin-ish in a rack where the J cups stick out like a lot further like that. Like if you did it on a power rack in there, you'd probably need to set up like a little further, like kind of the bar more over your nose or so, because you're going to need more clearance to get it out. But anytime that you've got like a new rack, you can kind of find like that landmark on your warm-ups and then shoot to like have it in the same spot every time, so that you know like where you need to be. Yeah, I'll show the difference between those two. So like most people would be a little too far down the bench, and then they go to like push it out of the rack, and they're like that, right? Now my shoulders had to pop up and lost position. Ideally, you set up a little higher, and then I'm literally just pulling the bar like that way, which helps get me in position. I extend my elbows, and then I pull it the rest of the way out. And like as you get good at that, it should be really strong too. Like I feel comfortable going up to probably my opener or heavier without ever getting like liftoffs. And honestly, that's kind of freeing because like you don't have to like have someone around to help, and you don't have to trust like random people at the gym as often. So I think like getting good at a self-hand rack is useful for that reason, as well as just like it'll probably make your bench press better if you like learn how to do that. I'd say another really common thing when it comes to the shoulders is like people losing position in the bottom, like either as they touch or when they go to press up. A lot of people will go from kind of here to like there, or they go to press and suddenly they're here. So what a lot of people think of as like, oh, I've got weak triceps, I can't lock out my bench, in reality is just as soon as they went to press, they ended up here, the shoulders popped up, and now they're in a really crappy position to finish. So like, yeah, of course they stalled out like here with a little bit left. Whereas if they had managed to like keep that, then it would have been like smooth and fluid. So it's a lot like the deadlift. There's not really lockout issues in the deadlift, because like if you're in a good position, this is the easiest part of the lift. You've got like really short moment arms. It's easy to produce a lot of force there compared to like way down here. It's just most people will lose position as they break off the floor. Now they're really rounded over, and then it's really hard to just like uncurl your spine at the top against all that weight. So it's the same deal in the bench press. Like missing at the top is probably actually from an issue in the bottom, where like you lost shoulder position and now you just can't grind it out from here. So if you're someone that struggles with like losing shoulder position during your bench press, there's two great fixes. There's tempo, and not just like on the way down, but like tempo the whole thing. So I'd go like 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, pause for a second, and then 3 seconds on the way back up. So like 1, 2, 3. Because if when you lose it in the lift is whenever you go to push, it wouldn't really make sense to like go slow on the way down, pause, and then boom, like with a really light weight, because now you're probably getting out of position like you always do. So like take it slow on the way up as well, and that will probably help. And then the other thing is just how you do your back training. Like lat pull downs, rows, lat pullovers, all of these things are chances to like practice creating tension in the way that we need for this lift and the squat and the deadlift, not just like trying to build muscle. So like in your rows, we're looking for like, can you pinch the shoulders together here? Can you get in like that sort of shoulder position rather than like rolling forwards like this in the bottom? Same deal with like lat pull downs. Can we actually get the shoulders pulled down and kind of finish here, as opposed to just doing one of these? And the better that you get at those movements, it'll also help a lot in terms of like fixing it here. So like be deliberate with those, and also just like progress them over time and build up the strength, and it'll help a lot. And then when it comes to like the next part of the body, the elbows, the biggest thing is like tucking and flaring. You'll hear a lot of people talk about like tucking in the bench press, or, oh, it's too flared. I'd say we don't actually want to like think about what the elbows are doing. It should be a byproduct of everything else. Because if you pinch the shoulders together and down really hard, and you're here in this bottom position, I can't really lift my elbows any more than that without like losing some of that tension if I'm super tight. So like it should just be a byproduct of keeping the shoulders where they need to be. And if anything, you're probably overdoing it when you cue it. Like a really common cue is like bend the bar, like try and make a horseshoe out of the bar. I hate that one because you almost always end up with people that are like here and they're super over tucked. So like now the elbow's not even stacked under the wrist. They're in like a mini skull crusher. Like if you look at it from the side, when they're here on their chest, their elbow's like way out in front. That's not a strong position compared to like there. And you're not really able to use your pecs nearly as well, like from this sort of position compared to there. So if you use the cue like bend the bar, I would probably stop. And like I wouldn't think about like trying to tuck or trying to flare. Just focus on the back position. The one cue that I do use for like changing the elbow position is just hand pressure. It's not something that like most people talk about, but like more of you guys probably will have heard about like foot pressure in the squat. If I'm like super on my toes, then like the rest of me kind of shifts forwards as a result. If I'm on my heels, I kind of shift back, right? So like where the pressure is in your foot changes your body position. Same deal with your like hand pressure. If you tend to be like a little too flared, or you lose tension as you go to press and you end up kind of here, just cue like squeeze the pinkies really hard, and that will naturally give like a little bit more external rotation and help you stay just a teeny bit more tucked. Especially because a lot of the times when someone ends up super flared, it's because the bar just kind of like shifts all of the pressure to the inside of their hand. As soon as they go to push, they end up like here. So just keeping that pinky squeeze, especially as you go to push, can kind of help keep better position and finish smooth. Other two things when it comes to elbows is like soft elbows. In a powerlifting kind of context, you have to have the elbows locked after the unrack to get the start command. If they're still kind of bent, the ref will wait for like 5 seconds is technically the rule. And then they'll say replace the bar. So you have to like put it back in the rack. They'll tell you what's wrong, and then you can try again. Most of the time when someone has like really soft elbows, it's because they're like super emphasizing depression of the shoulder. And like shoulder depression often pairs with like external rotation really hard. And when you're super rotated like this and your hands are fixed on the bar, now your elbows kind of have to like bend a little bit. So I would say the fix is number one, try and like separate the two. See if you can get shoulder depression without as much external rotation. And then also you could just cue less depression, or like make sure that you get the bar out of the rack, get the start command, and then you can like really like screw into position if you need, if you feel like that's how you have to bench press. You can just wait until after you've already gotten the start command, and then you do that, and then you lower the bar down. That would also be a fix. And then this one's pretty niche. It might not apply for any of you guys, but if you were in the IPF or Powerlifting America, some of them have like an elbow depth rule. It was to prevent the like super bendy, super wide benches like that, where the bar only moved like that far. So the rule is the bottom of your elbow has to get at least as deep as the top of your shoulder. So like you'd have to get at least there for your bench press to be legal, which is like hardly moving at all still, right? But so if you ever see like a super bendy female with like a really wide grip and they get to the bottom and they like intentionally drop their chest, it's probably just because they're trying to like meet the rules of that one federation. So like, I don't know that I can even do it, but they'll be kind of like here, they get to the bottom, they're not at depth yet, so they just flatten out just a teeny bit. They'll get the press command, then they pop their arch back up, and then they press. It's just because they're meeting that like one specific rule for that one federation. Most powerlifting federations don't even have an elbow depth, and you have to be like a certain build for that to even be applicable. But if you ever see that on Instagram and you're like, that's an awful bench press, they're just like gamifying the rules. They don't want to like have to take their grip in and have a longer like actual bench, so they just flatten out, pop back up, and then press. Moving on to the hands and wrists. If your wrists are moving or the bar is moving in your hand while you're benching, you're losing power. Like think about a crumple zone for like cars in an accident. Like rather than just having a rigid car where it just goes boom and there's a lot of impact, it intentionally like folds a little bit to like reduce the force. We don't want your wrist to be that like crumple zone. We want like a hard transfer of force into the bar. We don't want to be like pressing and have the wrist like gradually rolling back or anything. And the other problem with that is like the wrist position changes the elbow position. If I just roll my wrist back and like this is a fixed point with the bar, I'm naturally going to like end up tucked more as a result of like wrist extension. Or if I like straighten out, the elbows change position. So the people that you see as they bench, they roll back, and as they press, they kind of straighten out. That's just causing a lot of like wonkiness and inconsistency compared to if they could just like keep one fixed position. Or if as someone is pressing, their wrists are kind of rolling back and the bar is rolling in their hand, they're probably just losing a lot of force that could be transferred into the bar instead. So there's a few good fixes. The first one, squeeze the bar harder. That will kind of help keep things stiff. The other one is wrist wraps and like learning to use them correctly, because a lot of people just apply them poorly. Let me grab some as an example. So if you buy nice wrist wraps, they're probably directional. They're not going to be identical. If you buy cheap ones, both are probably the same. They're not directional. But like see the Velcro is pointing forwards on both of these. The thumb loop is pointing a different direction. So like this is a right, that's a left. Because you can either put the thumb loop on, which is what most people do, like that, or you can just hold it, because once you're done wrapping, you're going to have to take the thumb loop off anyways for a meet, because you can't wear the thumb loop. So I would just hold it, and then the goal is start a little bit lower down the wrist, and then gradually come a little bit higher, and make sure that you finish like actually like up here above the wrist joint. You can only go like about 2 centimeters, like a thumb's kind of distance above the wrist joint before it's illegal. You can't come like all the way up into the hand. But if you don't actually cross the wrist joint, then it's not actually like restricting movement, because if it's all down here, then I can just flop around all that I want. So start a little bit lower, work your way kind of up, and then finish fairly high up the wrist. And I would try and keep your hand like flexed and the wrist in the position that you actually want while kind of like locking it in. And then if you do that, like you should have pretty restricted mobility of the wrist. So that will naturally help kind of support the position that you're trying to maintain and simplifies the movement. We're essentially like taking one joint out of it. Now you don't have to worry about like what's happening here. You can just focus on like what's happening at these joints that actually matter. So I would recommend wrist wraps if you don't already use them, and like get better at using them. The other problem I see pretty often is people will just put like every layer right on top of each other in one spot, and then the whole wrist wrap just kind of pivots as they like bend their wrist. Gotcha. So that's probably the reason. I would just space them out just a teeny bit. So like one there, one there, one there, as opposed to just like all 3 layers like right here, or else the whole thing can just kind of whoop. And if your wraps are not directional, like if both pairs looked exactly like this, the only difference is like when they are directional, I can go around the outside to wrap both. If they weren't, then both of them would look like this. And I would have to either go around the inside to wrap this one, so like this direction instead of that way, which can just be a little more awkward. Or if you want to still wrap around the outside, you just hold it here on that side, you pull it here. So now it's sitting like this, whereas otherwise it's sitting like that. So Like one way it sits in line with the wrist, the other way it's just going to start a little higher. It's going to fold down like that, and then you can keep going from there. But it's still going to function the same, and the general wrapping principle is the same. It's just kind of nice if you do have a pair that's like this.
I have a pair that where the first one goes through a loop.
Yeah.
Would that matter, or do you think I should get something like that?
So I've seen some like that, like the Inzer grippers are probably the most common ones like that.
I think they're USDS.
Okay. Well, like the entire end has like one big loop that's attached like there.
Yeah.
So it's called like a belt strap loop. You can pull the whole thing through like this if you want. It just tends to make it a little harder to like get it exactly where you want it on the wrist compared to holding it. But even with the belt strap loop, you can kind of just hold it. You could grab the loop and then hold the wrap where you want. Kind of the same principle, and then just let go of it whenever you're done. Or do that. Yeah. And if you cut it, the only thing I'd be careful of is try and make it directional. You know, if you snip the bottom on both, then they're both going to be the same direction. If you snip the top on one, then it might fold the other way, and you could have them directional that way. So, all right, I think that's it for the wrists. In terms of like the hands, again, you need to squeeze the hands, because if the bar is like rolling, we're losing force. If you struggle with accidentally like flaring too much and kind of ending up here, or like losing your back tension and going there, squeezing the pinkies is a perfect cue for that. And it's most important as you go to press. And the other thing about hands is like just where you stick the bar in general. I would shoot for like towards the base of the hand, in like the meat of the palm, directly over the wrist, rather than like up here. We don't want the bar like sitting super high where the wrist is really bent back and it's got like a big lever arm to the wrist. We want it like pretty close down here. Some people will go like slightly angled, like that, because when the bar is slightly here, then you can create a little bit of like torque against it to get there. I don't think there's necessarily like a right answer, as long as you're not like cranking it in like crazy. You could just go straight across. Either one's fine. But we do want it like fairly low as opposed to like way up here. And then there's like two popular like alternate grips. There's the suicide grip, which is thumbless. The reason people do that is just to try and get the bar to sit like even lower in their hand, or because they're playing with the rotation. When the thumb's not in the way, they could get into like slightly different positions. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for your average person, because the bar is more likely to just fall out of your hand. But if you have a real reason to do it, then maybe. And the other one is like a Japanese grip. It's where you are intentionally like really turning your hands in like this. The only reason people ever really do that is if they have a max legal grip. The widest you're allowed to go is these two rings. It doesn't actually have to be on the rings. It just can't be wider than 81 centimeters, which is the distance between the two. So like theoretically, you could be outside of the ring on one side and inside on the other, as long as the total distance is roughly that. But the point of the Japanese grip is they go max legal distance and then just have like one finger that's like that kind of distance. So they're managing to get like even wider than they could otherwise. So they're like super, super wide. And that would be if you had like a super high arch and like barely any range of motion. So if you were like here, then like that might be applicable. But for most people, that's probably not a good grip style. Stick to the basics. And you'll notice like some of these concepts kind of tie together. There's like styles of benching. If you are super mobile, can have a really high arch, and like are kind of short, so like the max legal grip is really wide for you, then you can get away with a lot of like extreme stuff, whereas most people kind of have to be more moderate with their approach. And like taller people like me don't really have that option, because like even a max legal grip is like not that wide for me. It's just kind of like here. Whereas like for these super bendy, super short people, like having that max legal grip means that they're just kind of here, and that's their bench press. So a lot of it is like finding the style that works for how you're built. In terms of that, like grip width wise, I'd say the ideal for pretty much everyone is as wide as you can control. The key thing is like, can you control it? Because as you get wider, the demand of like keeping that shoulder position gets harder and harder compared to like when you're in pretty close. Because when you're pretty close, there's like natural stability. Your body's like kind of scrunched up. You don't have to work as hard to manage it. Whereas like the wider you go, the harder it is to keep from having your shoulders kind of lose that position and pop up. And that's something that can like change over time. If you get bigger, you might be able to take your grip out wider. If you just get more skillful in terms of like controlling your shoulder position, you can gradually work your grip out. And with some people, where I think like in the long term they'd be better off with a wider grip, what I'll do is have them do their like main bench day with their regular grip, and then their secondary bench day, maybe it's tempo or just higher rep, a little lighter, and we work to like widen that wider grip by like one finger at a time. So it's not like a huge drastic change all at once where I'm like, oh, we're going from here to there. It's just creeping from like there to there. And as they're like, oh yeah, that feels pretty comfortable, then maybe we make that their comp grip, and then their wide grip now becomes one finger wider than that. So it's just like creeping it out over time so that they can actually control it. And generally, like the main group where I'm like most worried about that is like short, flexible females, where they could like really take advantage of that like super short range of motion if they manage to get there. A lot of them will naturally default towards like wanting to be pretty close because they're not that big. But if we can creep that out over time, then they can get to the point where they're just here, then that's awesome.
So on the grip,
yeah,
I always thought it was better to keep your arms like perpendicular for a better stag.
Sure.
But and also like the wider you go, does it not put more strain on your shoulders?
Sure. So I would say if you have like a really good shoulder position and a pretty good arch, like being in that wide position, you don't have to get like super deep. Like if your chest is here, then you can touch in like that sort of position where the elbows maybe like level with the bottom of the bench. If you were like super, super flat and just kind of here and the shoulders weren't really pinched down, then like, yeah, going super wide, you'd end up in like that sort of position and this wouldn't be so comfortable. So part of it is like lining up the grip width with like the rest of your position. And again, kind of ties into that, like, can you control it? Because if you can get like really here and manage that wide, then you're probably fine. Whereas if you're just sort of there, then you might need to take it a little narrower to start with. So the next thing was bar path. A lot of people will talk about like, oh, do you want the bar to like travel in like a J or like a straight line? I'd say it's almost like the elbow flare. We shouldn't really like think about the bar path. It should be something that like naturally takes care of itself if you're maintaining position. Because if you're managing to stay here, the bar is naturally going to start over the shoulders. It's going to touch like at the highest point of your chest. So it's going to have like just the tiniest bit of like maybe a teeny bit of like kind of travel back, but not much. If you don't have like that great shoulder position and you're kind of just flat, then it's going to have to start up here and it's going to have to touch down there and it's going to be a little more curved. But what we don't want to see and definitely don't want to cue is like a really intentional like shove back. Because whenever you're here and you really think about like throwing it back, then your shoulders pop up to stay under the bar at the top to keep it stable. Probably. But you just think about it. Like you can't hold the bar up here with your shoulders down here unless you were like actively like supporting it entirely with your lats or something like that, like pulling it over. Like if it was an empty bar, maybe. But otherwise, your shoulders are popping up. So when people will say like push back or like to me or whatever, that sort of stuff, when someone's like grinding out a bench rep, it's probably just because it's already a really heavy rep. They're already out of position and are just kind of like accepting that. Like I've cued people like that where they're trying to like lock out a bench and they're stuck. It's like from there, maybe we kind of finish here, but it's just because they've already had the shoulders really pop up and we're just kind of accepting that.
Feels like if you're like here, then it's like so much easier to just go up and lock out.
Yeah.
As opposed to.
But in the long run, what we're really shooting for is like keep the shoulders pulled down and try and just like I would think about pressing straight up. See if you can just have like right here where it's like kind of like down just below the nipple line sort of and like just straight up and down so that we're not intentionally like kind of losing that shoulder position as you press back towards your face.
Straight up and down.
more arched you are and the like shorter range of motion you have, the straighter it'll be. It's fine if there's a little curve, but I wouldn't intentionally cue that. In conclusion, like if you take away just a few small pointers, I'd say the biggest things, try not to breathe. So like hold your breath from before the unrack through at least that first rep, bare minimum, maybe even a couple more reps if you can, if it's a set of like 2 or 3. Treat the unrack like a pullover. Just pull the bar out of the rack and extend the elbow, as opposed to like pushing the bar out of the rack and flattening out. Make sure that you squeeze your hands really hard, maybe even cue the pinkies in particular if you struggle with flaring when you go to press. And then the other one that I really like is thinking about trying to like meet the bar on the way down. So you should be like really reaching your chest to the bar and using your leg drive to like create more and more tension, so that you're trying to get like here as you touch, rather than just kind of lowering the bar down to yourself where you end up kind of like there. That'll help you be a lot tighter and a lot higher with your arch in a strong position to like pause and then press. Like those 4 cues are probably what I use 70% of the time to like clean up almost every issue. So like those are the big bread and butter ones.